By the mid-1990s, Universal Studios Florida had established itself as a must-visit vacation destination. The theme park featured many attractions based off of many classic Universal films such as Back to the Future, Jaws, and many more. Around this time, Universal was in the middle of a huge investment that would change the landscape of the Florida theme park industry forever. With the Walt Disney World Resort down the road and claiming the crown over Universal as the must-visit resort, with the Walt Disney World Resort already having 3 theme parks and a 4th already under construction. Universal would answer by adding their 2nd theme park, Islands of Adventure, alongside Universal City Walk and many resort hotels. But the second part of their plan was to update the lineup of attractions at Universal Studios Florida. By the early 2000s, it became obvious that the main attractions based off of Universal's classic movies were not a big enough draw compared to their competitor in Walt Disney World. Universal realized they would need to update their attractions to newer Universal movies to appeal to the new generation. But the challenge was, what movie franchise should Universal choose and what should be replaced in the theme park? Luckily, the choice couldn't have been any easier. On May 7th of 1999, Stephen Sommers would release The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser. With a budget of only $80 million, the film would go on to be a major Hollywood blockbuster, grossing over $416 million worldwide, and would later lead to the 2001 sequel, The Mummy Returns, and would also lead to a spin-off film known as The Scorpion King in 2002. With the success of the franchise revitalizing the classic Universal horror movie for the newer generation, it became no question that Universal Creative had picked the perfect property to focus their brand new e-ticket attraction around. The attraction that would be replaced would be the classic King Kong-themed dark ride, Confrontation, which was always a crowd pleaser, but suffered from many flaws in terms of reliability and cost efficiency, leading to its unfortunate demise. The attraction would officially close to the public on September 8th of 2002 to make way for the new attraction. For the new Mummy-based attraction, Universal wanted to add a roller coaster to their lineup, as Universal Studios Florida has yet to have one in the park. But with the ties to the movie, Universal wanted to make the attraction as immersive and as story-oriented as possible, with the concept of being the world's first psychological thrill ride, playing with many human phobias such as the fear of the dark and the fear of the unknown. Director Stephen Sommers and Universal Creative, led by John Murdy, would collaborate to bring this attraction to life. Premier Rides was brought in to construct the roller coaster portion of the attraction, as dynamic structures would provide the track sections that would turn, rotate, and realign the vehicles, such as the track switches. When Confrontation was built, many portions of the attraction track were built into the show building itself and were kept in the building, which still stands to this very date. For preservance of space, portions of the building were excavated out for the roller coaster track, including its final drop. The 16-passenger ride vehicles were made to resemble mine carts and are split into 2 cars that ride very close to each other but separate during the thrilling portions of the attraction, due to the turns or variations on the track. The attraction would come out to a total cost of $40 million and would open to the public on May 21st of 2004, and would become an instant success, winning multiple awards and being voted the best indoor roller coaster in the world 7 times in the last 9 years. Your journey begins in the New York section of the park, where you first see the massive 6-story tall show building housing the Mummy. The building facade was first utilized to resemble Pennsylvania Station in New York City for Confrontation, and has now been outfitted and transformed into the Museum of Antiquities. Inside the museum doors, you might be surprised to find there's no museum at all. Rather, you appear standing to be in a studio soundstage with props department. Overhead, monitors feature authentic interviews with the cast and the crew of The Mummy, as they introduce the idea that we have arrived to the set for a 3rd entry in the series, The Revenge of the Mummy. It's being filmed right here today, and the cast is on hand, not only to share real production footage from the series, but to warn us about some strange occurrences here on the set. Rounding the corner, any semblance of the studio's props department melts away. The rest of the queue takes place in a winding Egyptian tomb filled with artifacts, hieroglyphics, and booby traps meant to startle, amaze, and set the scene. The true backstory of this occurrence is that the curse of Imhotep has overtaken us and has sent us back in time to ancient Egypt. The queue continues to an active archaeological excavation, with the towering statue of Anubis having been uncovered. We climb the makeshift excavation stairs and catwalks suspend around the idol to find ourselves at a dual attraction load stations, where you will board your 16-passenger mine vehicles.
He's after your soul! Look for the Magi symbol! It's your only hope!
Silence! With your souls, I shall rule for all eternity. Serve me as a religious beyond measure. Or refuse. Magi can save you now. There is no escape. Your end shall be my beginning. Behold your fate. Your destiny. Prepare to forfeit your souls! Death is only the beginning!
Hey, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed yourself. I would have enjoyed this interview a lot more if I had gotten a cup of coffee! Thank you.
Revenge of the Mummy may be one of the most appreciated attractions from both an enthusiast and a general public standpoint. The ride is a blend of dark ride and roller coaster so much to please any rider of any thrill tolerance. Revenge of the Mummy uses Premier Ride's linear induction motors to propel the vehicle at such high speeds. This technology was first used on Flight of Fear at Kings Island. On a linear induction motor launch, linear induction motors are bolted to the roller coaster's track, while each train is affixed with metallic fins that pass through a groove in the motor. When supplied with electricity, the linear induction motor becomes an electromagnet attracting in and then repelling out of the track's fin. When LIMs are lined up down a coaster's track and powered into succession, they can create a gradual and a quick acceleration using magnetism. While on the topic of the launch, it is time to expose our first secret. Revenge of the Mummy's launch is advertised as 40 miles an hour, with the attraction's top speed maxing out at 45 miles an hour. But the launch is actually only 33 to 35 miles an hour, with the attraction's top speed mirroring 40 miles an hour. The launch speed is determined by the weight of the ride vehicle, which actually gets measured on the turntable leading up to the launch. The launch speed to vehicle weight ratios are unknown, but roller coaster tendencies suggest that the heavier the vehicle, the more energy needed to launch the vehicle, resulting in a suggested fully loading vehicle getting a full 35 mile an hour launch. The LIMs are also used to propel the ride vehicle through the dark ride sections of the attraction, but are much different from the ones used on the launch. The ones in the dark ride portions of the attraction are known as slims and are placed on the middle of the track instead of the sides and generate a consistent current from one magnet to the other, keeping the vehicle at a much slower speed. On the topic of the dark ride section of the attraction, the Imhotep animatronic is certainly a figure to put most to shame. The animatronic is 6'8" and weighs 650 pounds. Imhotep has the capability of 80 independent motions powered by 100 feet of hydraulic tubing producing 4,000 psi, with both analog and force feed control. Robustness and maintenance were key considerations in the design, since the figure operates from some 12 to 16 hours per day. Engineers say that the design requirements took into account the considerable fatigue associated with the enormous numbers of stress cycles that typically show equipment and is exposed over its lifetime. They also took steps including fabricating most of the linkages out of high-stress stainless steel, machining them out of a solid block with few welds to minimize stress risers. The movements on Imhotep were so lifelike that at first Universal toned down the movements as they didn't want guests to mistake it for an actor. In the finale portion of the attraction, the ceiling begins to catch on fire, which leaves most guests in awe, and all of them certainly warmed up. This effect is known as brain fire. The effect is achieved by using real flames fueled by natural gas. At the ceiling level, the temperature is 3,200 degrees Fahrenheit, and at the rider's level is a much more manageable but still very warm 107 degrees Fahrenheit. In the treasure room, more than 3,000 sheets of gold foil were used to cover the treasures in this room. There is a tribute to Kong among the gold statues, with each warrior statue weighing about 450 pounds. In the Scarab room, physical bugs pour out of a hole in the wall in front of the ride vehicles as more bugs that are attached to a scrolling canvases appear to crawl along the sides of the walls. The effect is enhanced by video projection systems. The room goes black to heighten suspense as the car backs up. As the car enters a turntable, projection systems create an image of Imhotep that it seems to follow the car as it turns. During the roller coaster portion, there are 25 apparitions that appear in the coaster section. Each flat painted image is approximately 30 inches by 20 inches. Artist Stacy Allen painted the original images, which were then recreated in fluorescent colors. Each apparition is illuminated with low-level black light, followed by a bright black light strobe, and then a white light strobe explosion producing a burn-in effect in the rider's eyes. And with arguably the best portion of the attraction being the 39-foot drop, we reveal to the public that the drop is not actually 39 feet. The drop itself is only 25 feet, and the drop angle is 50 degrees with a banking angle of 78 degrees. So unfortunately, we have all been lied to by Universal, with the final drop being cushioned by an additional 14 feet, thanks to some clever advertising. So unfortunately, we've been lied to about the max speed, launch speed, max height, and max drop. But hey, we still love Revenge of the Mummy regardless, and it still stands as my all-time favorite attraction by Universal Creative. For 16 years and counting, Revenge of the Mummy continues to thrill millions of visitors a year. Despite being one of the resort's signature attractions and highly regarded as one of the best roller coasters in the world, that hasn't kept the attraction off the re-themed rumor mill for some time now. Many rumors began to swirl when the 2017 reboot of The Mummy hit the big screen. Known as The Mummy, directed by Alex Kurtzman and starring Tom Cruise, was Universal's attempt to kickstart a brand new movie series of Universal's classic horror monsters known as the Dark Universe. But The Mummy reboot flopped terribly in the box office, not even grossing half of the 1999 and 2001 movies. This can honestly be a great thing in retrospect, as it can mean the attraction is here to stay for longer than we anticipated, and plus, the new reboot doesn't focus on Egyptian tombs and action, more than it focuses on making its own story and trying to be a lead-off film for the Dark Universe, with the majority of the movie taking place in London. And with the attraction recently receiving an interior refurbishment during the 2020 closure due to the coronavirus pandemic, it is safe to assume that the attraction will be around for the near future, and quite possibly for the long term. But now, only time can tell if Revenge of the Mummy will meet its fate and become a victim of its own demise. With that being said, that's going to wrap up our documentary on Revenge of the Mummy today. No pun intended. But we thank you again for joining us today as this featured presentation on Orlando Parks Insider. If you've already have not, please be sure to subscribe down below and leave a like and a comment. And please be sure to leave us any suggestions for any future attraction documentaries, as yours may be featured on our next special. Also, please be sure to share this video with a friend so they can relive the same journey through the Egyptian tombs as you did. And once again, thank you so much again guys for tuning in. We will see you guys next time here at Orlando Parks Insider.